Hi, so my name is Adeline Drummond, and this is my lesson plan for Stages of Matter for Celeste. So basically, I'm just going to go through my lesson plan, what I plan to do with her, and then I'm going to go through and say how the 100 concepts fit in with my lesson. So, for starters, Celeste is 5 years old, and so I based it at a kindergarten age level. It'll be new material, and it'll be on an individual level. The standard is plan and conduct an investigation to describe and classify different kinds of materials by their observable properties, and that's PS 1-2-1. My objective is student will be able to identify one solid, liquid, and gas in the world around them with at least 2/3% accuracy. So I want her to at least get 2 of the 3 right. She doesn't have to get all of them right, because obviously it'd be new material, and that'd be wonderful if she could get them all 3 right. And I mean, we're going to go over all 3 in the lesson, but so hopefully she can at least get 2 out of 3. My kid-friendly objective statement is I can name a solid, liquid, and gas. So just pretty simple so that she can understand it. My vocabulary terms are a solid, and it's not loose or spongy, and it's not a gaseous or liquid. That one was a little bit harder for her to, would probably be a little bit harder for her to understand. Liquid, flowing freely like water. Gas, a fluid that has no fixed shape and tends to expand without limit. So I would explain like this is air. And reaction, a chemical transformation or change, the action between atoms or molecules to form one or more new substances. So I'm just going to explain how when 2 things get put together, something happens, and that's a reaction. My materials are going to be a pitcher, water, oil, food coloring, and Alka-Seltzer tablets. If she's really succeeding, I'm going to go into more about the reactions and what happens between the Alka-Seltzer tablet and the water. If she's having a little bit harder of a time understanding it, I'll probably just focus on one aspect, like a liquid or a solid, and see if she can really understand that and see if we can identify more in the world around us. To get her attention, I'm just going to ask her, do you know anything about a solid, liquids, or gas? Do you know, can you name any examples? For the input and modeling section, I'm just going to teach her the definitions, and I'm going to give her an example of each. So like, I'll go through and say, like, a solid is an ice cube. A liquid is water. And a gas is the steam when you boil water, because I'm sure she's seen boiled water around her house before. For the guided practice, we're going to do our experiment together, and what the experiment is oil and water in a pitcher together. The oil's on the top because it's less dense than water, and then you put drops of food coloring in, which is where we're going to input her favorite color, purple, and it will dye the water. And then you drop in the Alka-Seltzer tablets, and it begins to bubble up, and it forms a sort of lava lamp, but we're not going to call it lava lamp because we don't want to confuse this experiment with an actual lava lamp, because they are not the same. It's just one is an experiment and gets a reaction, and one is a household item. As we do the experiment, I'm going to ask her what she thinks will happen when we drop the solid tablet in. Does she think it's just going to sit there? Does she think it's going to dissolve? Does she think it's going to, I don't know. I'm just going to see what she thinks will happen. After we drop the tablet in, I'm going to explain what reactions are and how she, and try to help her understand that this substance went from a solid form into a gas, and hopefully she would be able to understand that. I hope that's not too hard of a concept for her to grasp in her mind, at least a little bit. To close the lesson, I'm just going to ask her if she can name a solid, liquid, and a gas that we did not use in the lesson. So like if she can name a solid is a table, a liquid is soda, and a gas is the air. If she can do that, that'd be awesome. And for the independent practice, it'll be throughout the the whole entire time, and she'll be using her motor skills. I'm going to have her pour in the oil in the pitcher. I'm going to help her with the water because I think we're going to be using a water fountain since we're going to be doing it at the ricks, and I don't want her to have to be able to carry that heavy of something. But she'll be putting in the food dye or the food coloring. She will be putting in the Alka-Seltzer tablet so that she can really do this hands-on, and it's really her experiment. The 3 types of researches, and now I'm putting in the 100 concepts in my lesson. So of the 3 types of research, descriptive, correlational, and experimental, we'll be doing experimental because we're doing a science experiment. For domain, we will be doing all 3 types of the domain: the cognitive, affective, and psychomotor domain. For the cognitive, you know, obviously those are mental skills. We're going to be she'll be learning about solids, liquids, and gases, and obviously that's going to increase her knowledge. For the affective domain, I'm going to teach her about reactions in real life as with her attitude. So like if a sibling takes her toy, is she going to bubble up with anger like our experiment did and react that way, or is she going to stay calm and use kind words? And so that's how I'm gonna input the growth and feelings into the lesson. The psychomotor domain with the motor skills, I'm just going to have her be pouring in the oil, her be doing the water as much as she can since it's a little bit heavier, and we're probably gonna use a water fountain. And also having her put in the food dye as well as the Alka-Seltzer tablets. Hopefully Celeste doesn't have a lot of trait anxiety, and if she does, hopefully she has a brother or sister there with her to help calm her down. I am going to try to make state anxiety as low as possible. It's going to be kind of hard. The physical climate of the room, we are doing in the first floor of the Ricks in the lobby area, because I've been cautioned many times, never be alone with a student, and my roommates are always in the living room and kitchen, so I knew it wouldn't really be feasible to do it at my apartment, so I wanted to do it somewhere where they had tables, and so I chose the Ricks. So hopefully her state anxiety isn't too high, being in such a foreign place. Hopefully she's been there maybe once or twice. Hopefully with everything going on, she doesn't get debilitated. I'm not sure how experienced she is with the concept solid, liquid, and gas. I think once I say water and ice and steam, it'll be less foreign to her, and I will be sure to introduce those as the examples so that she doesn't get debilitated and get confused and get frustrated. And hopefully the state of facilitating anxiety will be at just the right height so that she can perform well. The defining features of my lesson is that it has a reaction. It bubbles up once you drop the Alka-Seltzer tablets in, and there is always water and oil, and the oil is always on top of the water because it is less dense. A correlational feature within my lesson is that, like a lava lamp, it'll sometimes have colors. And so Celeste has chosen purple as her favorite color, and so we're going to make the water purple so that it'll look like a purple lava lamp. And so that's kind of a correlational feature with an actual lava lamp. My prototype is just our basic experiment of putting oil in the pitcher, putting water in next to show that the water goes through the oil and that the water is more dense than the oil, then putting the food dye in and dropping the Alka-Seltzer tablets in. I don't really have a name for it. I kind of called it an oil lava or an oil bubble because it's an experiment. So that is our prototype, is those basic steps of the experiment. A positive instance would be a lava lamp because they both have oil and water, and they do have the bubbles up, but it doesn't bubble up quite as vigorously as this does. A negative instance would just be if she saw just oil or water and thought that she could perform the experiment with just one or the other. She needs both. A misconception that she might have is if she drops anything into water with oil that it's going to bubble up, which is not true. So I'll have to be sure to explain that it's just the specific kind of tablet that will work. An overgeneralization would be putting in a round white tablet will work. An undergeneralization would be if she believed that just simply putting oil and water together made bubbles. My goal with mastery learning is for her to be able to, at the end of the lesson, name the 3 parts that were solids, liquids, and gases within the lesson, and how the liquids is the oil and the water, the solid is the Alka-Seltzer tablet, and the gas is the reaction that was formed between the water and the Alka-Seltzer tablets. The physical arrangement will be, we are in the ricks in the sitting area on the first floor where the tables are next to the elevator. The physical climate probably isn't going to be too inviting just because I can't really change it, and like I said, with the precautions that I've taken to never be alone with a student, the physical climate is that of the Ricks building, which the environment on campus is very inviting, but to a little girl it's very big and open and probably a little bit scary. So hopefully she might have one of her siblings with her. I know that it was said that if a younger one goes, they might have a sibling, so that might be able to better the physical climate. The individual physical state will be, we'll just be sitting at a table. It'll be me and her. Hopefully I could sit next to her and convey a more sense of closeness, but not too close so that she's scared. But we'll just be together sitting at the table working on our experiment. I will use cueing within the lesson, allowing her to pour in the oil, the water, and the Alka-Seltzer tablets and see what she thinks, and hopefully she will, even the experiment could be cueing her responses. Our proximity will be fairly close. We'll just be sitting at a table together. Maybe she'll have a sibling on the other side or sitting next to her on her opposite side of me, but we'll be fairly close together. I will be using information language instead of control language because I don't want her to feel bossed around or scared in any way. A contagious behavior that she might get is that of maybe I might pour in the oil and she might pour it in after me. I can just demonstrate. Maybe I'll drop in a tablet or we'll both drop in a tablet together, but she'll probably be following my example in some way. The visualization that she'll have is she'll probably be trying to figure out what we're going to be doing with all of these materials, and the visualization that she will get is when we actually perform the experiment, she will see what she will be getting instead of what she just envisioned in her mind. Hopefully she'll have a little bit of an understanding of the solids, liquids, and gases, and then some of it will be intuition. She might already know them and she might not need my explanation, but hopefully she will not have intuition with the reaction so that I can actually teach her that portion. She'll be using her sensory register throughout the lesson. She'll be seeing the bubbles coming up. She'll be smelling what it smells like. She will be squirting the food coloring in with her hands. She'll be touching the oil as she pours it. She'll be touching the water as she pours it. She'll be touching the pitcher. She'll be using a lot of her sense of touch and smell during this lesson. There won't be too much of her working short-term memory, needing to retain it for a very long period of time. Hopefully she will retain it in her long-term memory, the information that we've learned, but the lesson will be maybe 20 minutes long, and so she won't have to retain it for very long throughout the lesson, but hopefully she will retain it in her long-term memory and be able to apply it to her everyday life of what a solid, liquid, and gas is and the reaction portion. Hopefully with her scheme she'll be able to categorize the information that we're learning about, and that she'll be able to process it without any troubles. And with her schema, hopefully she'll be able to apply the names of solids, liquids, and gases into things in the world so that she can be able to identify, oh, that desk is a solid, the air around me is a gas, the lake is a liquid. If she has learned about solids, liquids, and gases before, she might have a failure to retrieve, being so young and it probably being a decent time ago. Hopefully she won't have a failure to store, because with the hands-on experiment she should be able to connect the pieces of a solid, liquids, and gas and what a reaction is to what she's using in her brain. And as we've learned in Make It Stick, things that you use hands-on tend to help you remember things better. Interference will probably come into play as she has seen an ice cube melt, and she'll probably put the 2 and 2 together of saying, oh, that's a transformation from a solid to a liquid. The mnemonic devices that we'll be using for her memory aids is the experiment itself. It will help her to remember what each thing is and how each thing is formed and how one state can change to another. She will experience some decay as I'm not there to teach her consistently or to brush up on it later. This is a one-time lesson, and so she will need to practice her naming of solids, liquids, and gases in the world around her in order to keep it up. Otherwise, she will have to learn it again later. Hopefully, she will not have extinction. With the experiment, she should be able to retain the information and at least have it there in her brain and remember at least even the experiment itself, if nothing else, seeing the reaction as dropping in the tablets. I don't think she'll experience extinction, but she may, being so young. With Maslow's hierarchy of needs, her basic needs will be met. Hopefully she would have had breakfast before she came, but even if she didn't, it's a 20-minute lesson. It's not too long. If she needs water, she can have water. She'll have the kind of air climate around her that will be comfortable for her. The psychological needs, as we go about the lesson, I'm going to praise her when she does something right and redirect her when she does something wrong. So I really hope for this to be a very positive experience for her and for her self-esteem to be boosted and for her to learn from that as well. And I do hope for her to be able to achieve her full potential with her self-fulfillment needs and be able to perform most of the experiment on her own so that she can have that. There will probably be intrinsic motivation within her to drop in the tablets to see what will happen. That'll be from her own curiosity. And that kind of goes hand in hand with our extrinsic motivation. If I tell her that something will happen when the tablet is dropped in, she will want to know what that surprise is. I did say in my advertisement that there will be a surprise, so that might be an extrinsic motivation for coming or even following my directions. I do hope to have her have as little anxiety as possible. I naturally have anxiety and I want to minimize that for her. I hope to not convey feelings of anxiety so that she doesn't get any from me. I want her to have very high self-efficacy, and I want her to know that she can do this and that she is independent. She will already be coming in with a self-concept of herself and what she thinks about herself, so hopefully it is positive and she'll be able to continue with the experiment. I naturally don't have very high self-esteem, but hopefully she does, and hopefully my lack of self-esteem will not rub off on her. I want her to be confident that she can perform the experiment She may want some help, but I want her to be able to perform it on her own. I will be using self-regulation with her to watch her and make sure that she is safe and that her basic needs are met and that she is not in danger in any way. With attribution theory, there will be no uncontrollable factors. She will be able to perform everything. I don't think that there will be any stable factors that she could not do. She will be able to perform this experiment as long as she has every single material necessary. She will have control over her hands and her bodies as she performs the experiment. I hope to be able to convey things correctly so that there is not an external interference. And hopefully she's able to comprehend my directions and perform it and understand it with an internalness. Hopefully, it being in the morning, she'll be fresh and she will not have a hot cognition. Hopefully that she'll be able to have a level head and not be tired or weary, and that she'll be able to perform without any issues. Being so young, she may have a bit of learned helplessness from her siblings helping her. I hope to not do things for her. If she says, "Can you do it?" I hope to encourage her that she can do it on her own and let her surpass that learned helplessness. I do hope to convey that there is an imaginary audience cheering her on, and even a real audience in the real world. Her parents, her siblings are all there hoping that she will be able to succeed. Hopefully she won't have a personal fable about the information. She may develop a personal theory from this experiment. Using Vygotsky, hopefully she'll be able to use constructivism and be able to compile all the information that she's learned and retain it. Her zone of proximal development, I believe, is within the lesson. I don't need to teach her how to pour. She knows how to do that on her own. And I do believe that this is in her zone of proximal development. I hope to not throw off her mental equilibrium as to confuse her. Hopefully her existing thinking is correct and she'll be able to assimilate the incoming information and process it correctly. If necessary, she may be able to, or she may need to accommodate her incoming thinking and correct her previous thinking. Celeste will be in the preoperational stage of Pagut's cognitive stages. My instruction will be partially expository instruction so that she can make the connections between what I'm saying in the lesson. I will point to each substance and say this is a solid, this is a liquid, this is a gas. It will also kind of be direct as well. The two kind of mesh together at this point because I will be using straightforward language and presenting them to her in that manner. Hopefully using Carol Gilligan's stage theory of moral development for women, she'll be able to transfer from the survival stage to self-sacrifice. Hopefully she'll be able to look outside of herself, but her being so young, it might be a very small improvement, but it will still be an improvement. We will be using multiple stages of Bloom's taxonomy. Initially, we'll be using the remember stage, as she will say what a solid, liquid, and gas is and give an example. But she will be creating, because she will be performing the experiment on her own and forming a new substance. Of Erikson's psychological stages, Celeste is in the 5 to 13 years, industry versus inferiority stage. For Kohlberg's stages of moral development, I believe that Celeste is in the school age, conformity, and interpersonal accord stage, where she seeks approval from adults and older siblings. For Edward de Bono, we'll be using multiple thinking hats. She'll be thinking about what goes on, so she'll be thinking about the process. I will be giving her facts. I will be mentioning and asking her about reactions within herself emotionally, about how she reacts to others' actions. We are using creativity as we perform this experiment with colors and the Alka-Seltzer tablets. The benefits will be positive for her knowledge, and the cautions are that we need not stand too close so that she does not get water or oil in her eyes. She'll probably use some form of parallel thinking in her own mind. She'll probably be thinking about other things that she's noticed or making connections between the past. With behaviorism, I will be observing her behaviors and see how she reacts to me being there. The stimulus in this experiment will more than likely be the bubbles coming up out of the Alka-Seltzer tablet when it forms oxygen to bubble up to the surface. She'll probably have an emotional reaction in some way. She'll either have wide eyes or think it's cool or get excited. This will also probably be a response as well. I will be giving her positive reinforcement throughout. Good job. Thank you for doing this. I'm proud of you, and other things. And I will be using classical conditioning as well. I will be using shaping classical conditioning. If she does something that is not correct, I won't scold her, but I will redirect her in the correct way, and in that way shape it. I have high hopes for this lesson that she'll be able to transfer her knowledge, what she learns in the lesson, to her real life, and that maybe she'll be able to tell her siblings, oh, this is a solid, this is a liquid, that's a gas. I really hope that she does not experience extinction with this lesson, but if she does not review it, she will experience decay, and which will lead to extinction. Me being not professional yet, still learning, I may be giving her intermittent reinforcement unintentionally. I may forget to give her positive reinforcement at one point, and so it may not be every single time she does something correctly, but I do hope to give her consistent positive reinforcement. But with my newness to the career and not experiencedness, it might be intermittent. She will be using her neocortex as she performs the physical tasks of the experiment. As she does each thing, her brainstem will be being used as she sees what she needs to do, thinks about it, and then does it. She will be using her cerebrum and the cerebral cortex as she realizes what actions she needs to perform and then performs them. She will be using her frontal lobe quite often as she speaks to me and as we have a conversation. She'll be using her temporal lobe at the same time as she takes in what I am saying and thinks about it and processes it and understands it. She'll be using her occipital lobe as she connects solids with her eyes to what the content is in her head, as well as watching the experiment be performed. She'll be using her parietal lobe as she touches the substances to see what they feel like. Water is slippery. Obviously, she knows what water feels like. I'm sure she's felt oil before, and she'll feel the Alka-Seltzer tablet as she drops it in. She'll be using her cerebellum as she has coordination to pour the oil and perform the actions. She'll be using her motor cortex as she uses her motor skills to perform various tasks within the lesson. She'll be using her limbic system as she processes her emotions, how she feels when she sees the bubbles from the experiment and sees how rapidly it bubbles, depending on how many Alka-Seltzer tablets we put in. She'll be using her thalamus as she registers her sensor signals from her fingers to what I convey to her. If I cue her with my hand, she'll be registering that motion as well. She'll be using her hypothalamus during the lesson. If she's thirsty, she might say, I'm thirsty, or if she's hungry, she might have to wait a few minutes until she can go home and get some breakfast. Or I could get her something from the vending machine, but she will be processing those things in her body. She'll be using her hippocampus as she goes about this lesson. She may not be able to employ the spatial relationship memories as she was only able to perform this experiment once, but she will at least have done it once and have that beginning of the spatial relationship memories. She will be using her amygdala. She may have a bit of fear whenever we first meet, but hopefully I will be able to lessen that fear with a kind voice and a comforting appearance. And she will be using nerve cells throughout the entire lesson as she transfers signals from her body to her brain. She'll be using the dendrite as she receives stimulation from other cells that perform their action. She'll be using the axon as she carries out everyday tasks. It will be transmitting information to different neurons, muscles, and glands. She'll be using her synapses to transfer electrical activity from one cell to the other throughout our lesson as well. She won't realize it, but she'll be doing it. And she will be using her plasticity of her brain. As she increases in knowledge, it'll be making new connections. She'll be using myelination as she learns these concepts, and as the new connections are made, the connection will be able to make faster next time. I will be using mastery learning. I want her to be able to respond with what something is, and I want her to be able to give me feedback. We'll kind of be using cooperative learning. It'll just be a one-on-one activity, so I could ask her questions and act like I don't know the answer to like help her think it through, and I could give her cues as to what might lead her in the right direction and other things such as that. She'll probably be using discovery learning. She'll be drawing on previous experiences to why she thinks what's going to happen. She may have seen a bath bomb, and she may think that the Alka-Seltzer tablet is going to perform like a bath bomb, and she'll be making those connections. She will be using discovery learning as she performs the experiment, because she'll be discovering what happens as we perform the experiment. Being so young, she might have, I don't think she has helicopter parents. As seeing Brother Wilson in the class, I don't believe he's a helicopter parent, but I do believe he has a certain level of concern for his child, as any other loving parent would. But with having so many siblings around the house, it may be the effect of a helicopter parent always having someone there to protect her and always having someone there to help her with a task. The part of ethical research that will be done is seeing her response to my reaction question about her emotions. What will she do if someone takes one of her toys from her or pushes her? Will she bubble up with anger, or will she be calm and collected and stay kind? I don't think we'll have any issues with Institutional Review Board. I believe that everything in this experiment is ethical and will go on just fine. We'll be using problem-based inquiry as I begin the lesson by asking her questions and seeing her response. We will not be using computer-based instruction. We will also not be using computer-assisted instruction. We will probably be using distribution intelligence and cognition as she uses different parts of her brain and employs that to a separate part of her brain to perform the task. I will be capturing her attention, more than likely unintentionally, as it'll be one-on-one. But if I need to, I will capture her attention intentionally, and we'll go on with our lesson. She will probably have a natural desire to expand her learning as she is curious to find out what will happen. I will be teaching her throughout the lesson. I hope to teach transparently and allow her to know what she is learning and not have anything held back. There will not be any use of external homework. I do not think that is good for a 5-year-old. I hope to be having consecrated learning. I hope that once she learns what we have, that she will be smarter and be able to apply it in her life. I do have a great expectation for situational interest. I believe that once she sees the experiment and all of the material, she'll be interested in what's going to happen, and especially from my advertisement with saying the word surprise, I think that'll spark her interest as well. She may give the illusion of knowing as I ask her what she thinks will happen in the experiment. She may respond very confidently. She may think that she knows, but she may not know as well. She'll be using her metacognition and she'll be thinking within herself and trying to understand and having the awareness and understanding of her thought process, and hopefully I'll be able to understand her thought process as well, and if need be, correct it. And I hope to reduce this to a minimum, but I may be plagued with the curse of knowledge and forget simple things as such how to explain the word dissolving. I may say dissolving and she may not understand what that means. I will have to say it's whenever the water breaks up the tablet and it gets into tiny pieces and then it makes something else. I would have to be very careful to make sure, especially with such a young student, that I don't use my knowledge to curse her in any way or confuse her. And that is it. That is my lesson. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope my lesson will go well with Celeste.